Alrighty, gamers, welcome in to Retro Time. I'm No Such Time, and today I wanted to talk about. Oh, I want to talk about some Zelda lore today. Specifically directed from the Skyward Sword trilogy. Now, this goes into the whole idea of my past few videos, which if you go and you look at them, it will explain what I'm getting at. So let's get into it. So, if you remember, I made a part 1 and a part 2 to this. And as I'm playing Skyward Sword, I found something else I just had a question about. And I kind of made a connection on my own. But let's see what this creature is that I'm talking about. Now, in my book, the Hyrule Historia, there's a race called the Parella. Alright? Now, the Parella take place in a watery domain that reminds me of comparability. When you look at them both, reminds me of the race called the Zora. So, I'm going to get into a little more in-depth as to why I can say that I think this is the Zora. And I'll show you what the Zora is right now. And I'll pull both of them up side by side and explain more. So, alright, so now these are the Parella. If you look at them and you put them kind of side by side to the Zora, you can see there's very similar features within them. And the Zora had changed over time. And in my Hyrule Historia, I will read something off to you here in a bit that made me realize that these were supposed to be Zora to begin with, okay? So, looking at them, and then turning around and looking at this, you see a very similar scale-like feature to these creatures. And they go in both colors of blue, green, and red when you look at it. And so here's the female Zora. Still, you know, they look more human than they do over here. Alright, they're just a random sea creature, but you can kind of see the formation there. Well, I can't say formation, but you can kind of see the similarities there as to why I always say this. And if you go even further, the Zora have changed to like this, like a more like cleaner human looking fish creature type thing, which would be, you know, if you break it down, they would be mermaids to other, you know, lore and mythology. Alright, so, when you look at that, and then I come here to the Hyrule Historia, and I can read this off to you. Alright, so in my book here, the Hyrule Historia, which is what I'm reading right now, they were originally supposed to be called the Phantom Zora. We originally planned to have a race closely resemble the Zora, but we were told to design a more primitive race, and the idea was rejected. So, this idea of the Zora being in this one, it kind of changes the aspect of what the Zora originally did change from. Now, let me try to pull this page up for you guys on my screen so I can show you what it is I'm looking at, and we'll talk more about it that way. Alright, so here we're looking at the page from the book, PDF form on my computer. I do like having the actual book. It's pretty cool. But as you can see here, like, if you could zoom in even more, which let me try to, like, no, that's not it. Let me try to, like, view one page. Alright, this is the one I want to view, and we'll zoom in here and give this a look at. And so, if you look at everything here, well, yeah, I just went too far. I hate to, like, this is why I don't like having a PDF form of something. I'd rather have the real article of it. Alright, so it's page 48 in the actual book I have right here in front of me, okay? But let's try to zoom in a little bit more. Alright, so as you can see here, they're virtually aquatic creatures. And pretty much down below here, which if you look at it, alright, so here's all the stuff I'm talking about. They wanted it to originally, these were designs before they got to that final form. Alright, so right here is the information. The Phantom Zora. We originally planned to have a race that closely resembled the Zora, but we were told to design a more primitive race, and the idea was rejected. So they originally wanted to be Zora, because that's what we're used to, okay? But this would have been a very nice design right here. I would have liked this a lot better, because this still portrays the actual Zora themselves. And a beautiful aquatic creature, or like a humanistic aquatic creature that is very human-like, but it's a fish. It's fish people, pretty much. Like, again, going back to real mythology. Now, this would be considered as a mermaid in real mythology. Okay, of course, mermaids in mythology are always in the ocean. They're not land-based creatures. So this is a form of a mermaid that I guess the creators of Nintendo were like, let's put a mermaid into the game, and I don't know how. But, and so we read here, the sketches started with images of small fish, laughing, darting about, and having fun. We decided on the design of the standard Parella, with what looks like a small piece of coral on its head. The leader of the Parella, who guides Link, has a larger coral on her head, which she uses as key to unlock the door. Okay, so the thing I don't get is this is the one that guides Link. So are all the blue ones men and the red ones women, or how does that work? We don't know. I don't know too much. It doesn't give us too much information entirely about this, but we can see different forms also what they were trying to go through. I still kind of wish they would have went with this, but even this would have been interesting to see, but I probably wouldn't have liked this one, or this one up here. This would have been the coolest to see. Now, you can see why, when I say they look like Zora, again, you can pull it up, or why they are an evolution of the Zora before the Zora became... Why is this going into this? Why the Zora came about in the storyline, okay? Now, if we go back to the Hyrule Historia... Alright, so in the Hyrule Historia right here, the Skyward Sword game takes place way before the Ocarina of Time in the timeline. The first time I'd seen the Zora actually show up in the Zelda timeline was during the Ocarina of Time. I haven't played Minish Cap or Four Swords, which I am eventually going to. But these two games were the ones that I actually understand the most. But the first time we actually saw that last form of Zora, the form that's blue and looks like a human form, is in the Ocarina of Time. And that leads me to think that in this game, Skyward Sword, the place you are would have been Zora's domain. So let's go into that real quick. So right here, you can see the timeline again. I always reference this thing, but you can see Skyward Sword here is way before the time of Ocarina of Time. So this right here was the complete start of Legend of Zelda, and there's some things here that I wish they would go into, like the creation and stuff like that. Would be cool to see all that, but you can't really make those in games unless they sat down and really thought about it. But the location of the water dragon is Faron Lake. Alright, so I was wrong. It's called Lake Floria, and it looks very comparable to this, Zora's domain location, which takes place right behind her waterfall. And looking at the surrounding of Zora's domain, you can go back and even find a resemblance to Lake Floria in Skyward Sword. So, you know, my thing is the surface in Skyward Sword had to have been Hyrule. Had to have been Hyrule before it even formed into Hyrule. Alright, there's a lot of, like, connections there that connects Skyward Sword into Ocarina of Time and all the other Zelda games out there. And this is just one of the many references back to the Ocarina of Time and every other Zelda game that exists. So this is my lore video on this, and this is why the connection is very solid when it comes down to it. Alright, so there you have it. That is why I love this book, because this book teaches you a lot about the game, and there's a lot of information in there. As a Zelda fan, this is kind of the book that every Zelda fan actually needs. For me, this is a book I had in the past, and I was like, man, I really want that book back. So I'm finally glad I got it back. It's coming back to fruition. Anyway, if you like this lore video here, which I hope you did, this was a lot of, like, it wasn't a lot of thinking, it was just a lot of connection and all that. And they even stated in here, that was supposed to be the Zora to begin with. So, but if you like this here, hit that like button, please subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to get more from me, and I'll be having more Zelda content in the future. If I see anything else that I can make a connection with Skyward Sword and all that, and then use this to teach you guys something, I will do so. But until then, guys, take it easy and keep gaming, gamers.